What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me as always are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, here we are, another episode, another week of Guarani Vision. Obviously, lots to talk about from the football standpoint. Obviously, talking right into kind of the heat of the race of the Clausura. Obviously, talk some national team stuff as we get set for more friendlies. So I'm excited. Let's get this chat right on the road. Let's go to I hope you're not feeling too bored, Fede. We were talking about this right before the air, how it's a typical Thursday night. Usually here in the States, here we kind of get our popcorn or whatever type of food that we get and watch the football, and the football meaning the hand egg version of it, the NFL. But it's been kind of a chill week, you would say. Not a lot of crazy things happening in Paraguay as we are usually used to in sport or in just in life in general.
Yeah, for big news as it is, no big news maybe this week, but we do have a lot of football going on, Roberto, with midweek games, especially happening as we come down to the week number 11 for the Clausura. We have so many matches going on. We have to talk about some of the important ties that also happened. The big teams kind of stopped. The Libertad kind of catched up also. So yeah, we definitely have to talk about this Clausura that's just looking amazing. Totally different from what we're kind of used to lately, right? So many teams fighting for the title. So many teams trying to get into the Libertadores, the Sudamericana. Well, there's so much at stake, and we're kind of having these great games, last minute games that are just giving us amazing spectacles, and obviously talk about I don't know, maybe even mention the second division, Roberto, because after what happened last week around, we might have a new team in first division next weekend. Yeah, it could happen as early as that, with Trinidense after they played Luqueño last week around. They ended up tying the first spot team and the second spot team. Let's remind everybody that only two teams from the Intermedia, from the second division, come up to the first division. And in Trinidense, it looks like they have it. They're really close. They're just 1-2 games away, maybe. So they just need a good result. And depending on what could happen on the other game, they could already on this match, on this next game, go up to the first division. And on that second spot, we'll see what happens between Luqueño, San Lorenzo, Pastoreo. It's still kind of open for that second spot, but Luqueño has kept it for several weeks now. So it looks like those two teams might be in the first division as of 2023, just to throw something out there. And then obviously, we need to talk about the national team. I can't believe it's been that fast, right? That quick. You guys were just in Atlanta, and now we got to talk about our national team going to Europe, going to play against two, I think, respectable teams. And we're going to see our European players, which is what I'm more excited about. This is going to be the national team with the stars. This is going to be the national team of the future. So, we definitely got to talk about the list and what to expect on our next two games.
Certainly a kind of, you would say, hectic week when it comes from football perspectives, Ralph, because as we get set to talk about what's been going on in the Clausura, obviously we saw some results that have really, I would say, kind of factored in how we're kind of deciding this race, because we see Cerro Porteño get their wins last weekend, Olimpia drawing to Sol de America as well in a game that kind of had some controversy where they blocked off the streets of near Parauno, ended up in a 2-2 draw. We saw Guarani put 4 past Libertad on the weekend as well, a really big result, and one that definitely is could indeed hurt their chances of winning this Clausura title. And then heading into midweek, as we speak, literally minutes since the final whistle between Nacional and Olimpia, kind of the game that was really going to be decisive to see who would really stand on top of the Clausura. Obviously coming off a 2-2 draw for Cedro and Guaireña. It really seems like no one wants to take this Clausura by the hand. It seems as if, though, everyone is really up to play for, as we see the top 4 teams, Nacional with 22 points, tied with Cedro on goal difference. Only Nacional have scored 2 more goals overall, but still have the same goal differential at +7. Olimpia 1 point behind both those two teams in third, and Libertad in fourth place with 19, followed by Tacuaru with 17 in fifth, and Guaireña with 15-6. So, I think the big storyline that we've gotten over the last week since we last spoke is that the race is really heating up. And I mean, really heating up. I mean, we still have roughly halfway until the end of the entire season. We're heading into the halfway mark of the Clausura as there's 22 match days. So things are starting to shape up. But again, it seems as if though we cannot call this Clausura as of yet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just take the example of Libertad when they lost 4-0 to Guarani, which was a shocking result, really, to see them concede 4 over there. You kind of thought they were out of the title race because it came a day after Cerro had won and the gap was 5 points. And then in the midweek games, Libertad were the only one of the contenders that actually won their match because Cerro drew, and like you just said, Nacional and Olimpia drew. So suddenly they're kind of only 3 points away and they seem to be back in it. I think what's really exciting, well, the two things that are really exciting is one, we have a 4-team race, I would say, right? You have Nacional and Cerro joint top, Olimpia just behind, but then Libertad 3 points behind are still in the race. So you have something interesting there that you have 4 teams going for it. But also we're seeing that everybody is kind of up their level. Ameliano are playing better, Tacuarembó are playing better, Guarani have been scoring goals, something they couldn't do in the Apertura. So it means that there's no easy games where before you saw Cerro and Libertad would just pretty much beat everybody in the Apertura, and it was the games between themselves that were really exciting. It's not like that now. It's like any given week, one of those contenders can slip up, as we've seen. So I think we've got a really good 11 games coming to round off the season, and it's going to be coming thick and fast, these matches, with lots of midweek games as well. So you got to keep your kind of finger on the pulse with this, because a lot's going to be happening, I'm sure, as we get into the end of the season.
Yeah, and it's not just about the teams that are up there. I would even say, I mean, it's really hard to put money on which team is playing better. I mean, as of right now, which team has the best expression, which team feels better with their identity as of right now, coming to the end of the year and trying to win this title, right? Just like as Roberto was saying, trying to take over the tournament and really beat these other strong teams, especially Nacional, which I believe has been the big surprise for us all. I mean, this is a team that does not have the budget that the big teams have. They don't have the big stars, but hey, look, they have players with experience, and they're kind of surprising everybody. They just stopped Olimpia in a very important game. They've been able to get their way around the big teams, and they're on a winning streak also. So you got to watch out for this team, and especially when they have their fans behind them. I think they're kind of excited also, just trying to see if they can make it happen. We have Libertad kind of relaxed, I believe, after winning the Apertura, after what happened with them in the international stage. I do see a Libertad kind of relaxed and having way too many errors on their games. And then you have Olimpia that in a good day, when they have Derlis Gonzalez especially, I believe they're a really good team. And Cerro Porteño, a lot of points have gotten away from them, Roberto. I mean, what happened with them against Guaireña is not the first time around in this tournament in this year, with 3 points that were pretty much in the pocket, and Guaireña just pretty much took it away from them in that last game, in that last play.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think we saw a Cerro side that kind of looked switched off, and certainly Guaireña are always a side that are really tricky to play against. Doesn't matter if you're Cerro, Olimpia, Libertad, they've always made things difficult. So those are one of those, we say here in America, bogey teams that make it difficult. And so I think obviously it's those type of matches that could indeed determine a championship. It could indeed determine who can indeed really charge forward and be a contender, or for ones that slip away. And so I don't know, guys. I think, Ralph said, we still have that kind of 4-horse race, maybe even a 3-horse race. I mean, it's tough to say, honestly. I mean, it really is kind of a who's who, but I think it's that case of, I don't know. I mean, do we see another title race going right to the end like we saw last year? I mean, maybe not as dramatic as it was, but it's certainly feeling that way. Fede, I mean, this really is something that we have to focus on, that these teams, like, any drop points at this stage is going to be huge for the ones that are fighting for that race. Anytime one of the teams drop points, be it a Cerro Libertad, and as an example, obviously, then teams like Olimpia Nacional are delighted to take over and feel happy about that.
Yeah, if I have to predict it right now, I'm going to say, it's just going to keep on changing. I mean, that first spot, they're just going to keep on borrowing it. It's going to be, we're going to see Cerro, we're going to see Nacional up there. We might see Olimpia back in that first spot. They were close to it today. I mean, Nacional ended up tying it. So for a moment, it was Olimpia in that first spot, and Libertad is kind of catching up. I mean, after what happened in midweek, Libertad is kind of happy with the rest of the results. I mean, they're the big winners, even probably after what happened with them, just like you said, against Guarani with the 4-0. That was just pure damage to the locker room. That was a result that they were clearly not expecting. I mean, for a big team like Libertad to lose against a team like Guarani, I mean, it's a reality check, obviously, and I think it's just the second time a team has scored at least 4 goals on Libertad. I mean, I think the only team that did that this year was Cerro Porteño, right, on that clash in the Apertura. I don't think there's many more teams that have scored that many goals on Libertad just because of everything that they have, not just on defense. I do think they can be a lot better in that sense, but they have such an attacking team, and it's usually really hard to try and beat them. But yeah, they've been unbeatable pretty much at home all season long, and that's pretty much been where teams can't get around Libertad, right? When they play at home, and they've been really strong in that sense, and they were able to get back another win last week around when they played at home. And I think Libertad is ready for the challenge, but with these kind of results, losing against the small teams, I mean, it could be a problem for them. Just like I was saying that Cerro Porteño is not being able to wrap certain games up just when they think they have 3 points for them. So, I'm keeping my faith on Olimpia just because I see this team just so hungry as of right now. And I think Derlis Gonzalez might be the best player of the tournament. I mean, this guy, when he's on the pitch, he's making the difference. The thing is that Olimpia lost him right before this game against Nacional. He got sent off last week around, and that red card was not easy for Olimpia's plans. They don't have a replacement for Derlis Gonzalez, so Olimpia had to get around that situation against Nacional, and it wasn't easy, Roberto. I mean, watching the game, you could see that Nacional knows their strength, they know their weaknesses, just like Guarani does, just like Guarani did against the Cerro Porteño. And these teams, we're close to October. These teams have so much work on top of them, and the coaches know their players very well. They know what they have, and it's really hard for the big teams to really make a statement so far in this tournament.
They all have their kind of strengths, but their strengths in a way are their Achilles heel and their weakness. So in Olimpia's case, the weakness is disciplinary problems, right? So Julio Cesar Cáceres has really got them to kind of fight and play and grind out results where they can. But they've had 6 players sent off in the first 11 games. And the most recent one, Derlis Gonzalez, is a really important one. But in one game, they had Gamarra and Salcedo sent off, both their central defenders. So Olimpia, we can see that's kind of their strength, is that they play to win and they play hard. And maybe they're not tactically the best team, but they go out there and get results. But that's also their weakness when it gets too aggressive, let's say. And then you have Cerro. I mean, their weakness has been this switching off in the final minutes. As Fede mentioned, this happened before. Yeah, it happened 3 times now, right? Because they threw away the lead to Guarani when Camacho scored late on. I'm going to forget the other team that equalized late on, but then it was also Guarani. So it's happened to them 3 times now when they had gone, it was something like over 20 games without giving away a lead. They were really good at when they scored first, they just kept the ball. And they could see out results. So that's been their weakness, whereas they've recovered from what we thought was their weakness, which was scoring goals. They're finding goals again through Pachi Carrizo being the kind of playmaker and magician there in the middle. And then you have Libertad. Their big weakness has been in defense. So if Libertad are missing Barbosa, which is what happened against Guarani, he went off with a facial injury. On comes Aguilar, and they conceded 4 goals. And Aguilar was also playing that game where they conceded 2 at the beginning of the season to Emiliano, who scored an own goal himself. So they have so much strength and depth going forward, but at the back, that's been one of their struggles. So you can kind of pick these weaknesses out from all these teams and see ways they could slip up. So it's hard to see who could win it. I mean, maybe on that basis, I should just say Nacional are going to win it. But Nacionals, I think, are also very reliant on Bruera. Bruera has been a great player for them so far. He ran a bit cold in the middle of this, or the beginning of the season, I suppose. But now he's back. He's scoring goals again, and he's looking really good. And he can score. He just, once he's inside the box, he looks dangerous. But if he doesn't stay fit, or if he doesn't play well, then I think Nacional lose a lot of what's got them to this position.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to mention a little bit more about Bruera and Nacional, Roberto, right before you go on to another team or another game. Just following up on what Ralph is saying, because what's catching my eye out of this Nacional is they got one of the youngest attacking. They got really young forwards. I mean, Bruera's just 23 years old, and he looks a lot older, just the way he moves around and the way he looks in the pitch. But he's only 23, and he's barely on his second season in Nacional. And then you got Fleitas that's been playing around him. He's 25, but he's still very young. He still has so much ahead of him. So, and that's very different to what you find in Libertad and what you find in Cerro Porteño, where they have very experienced players. Just to put the difference right there in between those 4 teams that are up there, I think Nacional has some fresh blood on them, and that's why they're looking so good. Also, even surprising certain teams, and then you have the coach Pedro Sarabia. I mean, that's a coach that has already been champion with Libertad before. He knows what he's doing. He's set up several good teams before. And I think Nacional did a great job of hiring him. Ever since he came to Nacional, Nacional has looked completely different.
Yeah, I think you could certainly say that for a lot of these coaches. Obviously, Chiqui's won titles, Garnero's won titles, obviously Cáceres has also won titles. So certainly these 4 managers know what it takes to lead a team to a championship, to a title. And so I think, honestly, in the end, I don't think it would be surprising for any of these teams to win. Certainly, I think if we have to pick the surprising bunch, if we had to pick one, yeah, it'd be Nacional, obviously because of the history and all that. But certainly you can't count them out. And similar to what we did when we saw Guarani in this kind of race, things are starting to look about for Nacional. So yeah, I mean, we're into really a tight race, guys. It's always exciting to see. It's almost as if every single, be it Cerro, Olimpia, Nacional, and Libertad fan are really aware not only of their own games, but also the games of the rivals, because they know that they could take advantage of the point difference depending on how the results of their other rivals go. I mean, certainly it's not the case of depending on it, but certainly for some of it, it's getting to that. So we'll definitely have to wait and see how this race continues as we switch gears now to the national team. As Fede had mentioned, obviously the national team will be playing their final 2 games of the calendar year. Paraguay will be taking on Morocco and UAE. UAE first in Austria on the 23rd, and then 4 days later against Morocco in Seville, a team that is going to the World Cup in Qatar. And looking at some of the squad players that had been announced from Guillermo Barros-Schelotto, some of the names that we see, obviously not much in comparison to what we've been used to already. The only Mexican player that is on, 2 players that we actually saw in the tour when they went to the United States in the 1-0 win against Mexico in Atlanta. We see Anthony Silva in goal, and we also see the return of Matias Galarza. So certainly those 2 have made an impression on Guillermo Barros-Schelotto, Ralph. And really looking into this, I mean, it's kind of really the base of players that Guillermo has to trust for this new kind of process of the national team.
Yeah, that's right. We were saying, I think last time, about who we would hope to see again, and so Galarza was one of those players. So that's nice to see that he gets some continuity. I think Cubas is in there as well, right? So Cubas was there in Atlanta, and he's been picked here too. We hopefully get to see Julio Enciso play some football, because this whole situation in England with the the death of Queen Elizabeth means that he hasn't played, like Brighton haven't played. They're not playing again this weekend, and we were kind of hoping he was just on the edge of getting into the Brighton squad, and now there's all this change with the games postponed and also that Graham Potter's left. So let's just get to see him in the Albirroja at least and have a game. And then Roberto's mentioning in the chat, yeah, Choco Fernandez, he gets his first call up, I think, and the possibility to make his debut. He's doing very well in Russia. He went from Guarani, where he had a great season with Guarani, and that's someone that Guarani have missed really in terms of that defensive partnership he had with Marcos Cáceres really helped them in the run for the title last year. So that would be good if he gets a chance, because we know what to expect from Gustavo Gomez and Junior Alonso and Fabian Balbuena and all these people that we've seen previously. So I mean, let's just hope that we get to see some of these new faces as well. And what is a new challenge? Because I was just looking, I don't think Paraguay have ever played Morocco before in their history. So that's something new. And UAE, I think they played previously in a 0-0 draw, but I think it's just that one game. So I think it's also kind of new challenges and hopefully with some fresh players as well.
You know, one of the things that I've liked more, that I liked the most out of these last games, especially against South Korea and also against Mexico, I think is, you know, these guys really feeling it, that, you know, these games are friendlies, but they're taking it serious. And that's what I've liked. Like, these guys look like they're trying to build something, and they're taking every game one step at a time. They're trying to win every game. They're trying to build something in there. And yeah, obviously it makes it easier when you start repeating certain names, where we're always talking I'm always mentioning Andres Cubas, Richard Ortiz. I mean, these two guys have been in the midfield lately, back and forth. And I don't know if they're not going to be there, who's going to take their place, because I don't know if we're going to find the same style of football without those two, especially without Richard Ortiz. I mean, ever since he came back to the national team, I do think we've found that leader that we kind of needed in the midfield, especially. So I would put Richard Ortiz and somebody around him and try to find an alternative for Richard Ortiz, just in case we can't have him, because you can't rely on Richard Ortiz, especially at this age. But he looks like he's going to be an important player. And then you have Derlis Gonzalez. Also, he's been playing a lot lately in the national team. I love seeing him. But I watched this list, and obviously, just like Ralph, I'm excited to see, hopefully, again, Julio Enciso. I don't know if I should be worried about this change of manager in Brighton and Hove, with Potter going to Chelsea. I hope this doesn't mean that they're gonna leave him out of the team or something like that. I hope he still gets those chances that he was starting to get on the first team. We haven't seen him much yet, so he hasn't been able to show himself that much. So I hope the new coach gives him the opportunity. But, you know, just to be back with the national team, just to be back with the Paraguayans, I think Julio Enciso is going to be very happy to see the national team. And I hope he brings his best stuff. You know, we want to see him. We want to see Robert Morales when he comes back from the injury. But right now, Julio Enciso is that bright star that just went to Europe, and we're going to have him on this national. We're going to have him on the national team. I think he's going to start one of the two games, right? I mean, just what we saw from him in those minutes that he got against Ecuador. I mean, he's a different player, and I think the manager knows it. He wants to give him a special role and see if Julio can keep it, because you can give him the spot, and then he's got to earn it. He's got to keep it. He's got to start scoring. He's got to make the difference. I mean, you know, a lot of people are expecting a lot out of this kid. Just like I'm expecting a lot out of Jesus Medina, who I think passed the test against South Korea. Just like Matias Galarza passed his test against Mexico. I mean, there are some players that were probably not confirmed for the coach. And after these last friendlies, I think they took a step ahead. And then there are some players that I'm kind of worried about, guys. Santiago Arzamendi is barely playing in his team in Cadiz in Spain. His team is doing really bad, and he's not playing. He kind of lost his role there. And then the new names. Roberto Fernandez is back for the goalkeeper spot. I don't think anybody is going to take that spot from Anthony Silva, but in these kind of friendlies, you might get a chance, right? And Roberto Fernandez is a goalkeeper we know very much. We lost him. He was injured during the whole process for the last World Cup. So I think it's important for him to be back with Anthony Silva. Then we got two really good goalkeepers. And then he's trying out for that third role, right? I mean, he's taking different goalkeepers. He's taking now Juan Espino from Godoy Cruz from Argentina. He's been doing really well. He was in Nacional before. Santiago Rojas is right now in Nacional, and he was already brought to the national team. But just like I said before, I don't see anybody taking that spot away from Anthony Silva, especially after he was probably the best player on the national team in that last match against Mexico. So yeah, Roberto, I'm really looking forward to it. I want to see how Schelotto mixes it up. I mean, you got Miguel Almiron there, you got Enciso, maybe a chance for Sebastian Ferreira, also an MLS player. He's been scoring a lot for Houston Dynamo ever since he went to the MLS. So I want to see all these guys, and we got 2 games, so I think we're going to see most of them. I think we're going to see pretty much all of these players in action.
And certainly it could be an opportunity for them to get a good result. I mean, I think, the UAE obviously is a challenge. They've always been kind of a tough team for anyone in Asia. So, but I trust that this Paraguay side can get a result. And then Morocco is a talented side. Got the World Cup, got some players playing in the top leagues in Europe. So if they're able to get a good result against them, then that's a positive way of looking up, because it's the best we can do at this point before the Copa America, obviously the U20, the South American U Championship beginning next year. So yeah, it's really a good impression for Guillermo to really start looking at these players to say, okay, you guys are not secured of a starting spot, albeit maybe some specific players like you had mentioned, but everyone's fighting for those spots. Everyone's fighting to be a part of this new look team, because it's kind of what his mentality is trying to be like. So we'll definitely see what happens to this Paraguay side as they take on UAE and Morocco in Europe, as well as what's going on in this kind of heated Clausura race, guys. I cannot wait as we wrap up another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Ralph Hannah, and Fede Perez, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.